Step 3 is about timed toileting. At the moment, we're just sort of doing it routinely ad hoc as it fits into the day. But what we want to try and do is what we call timed toileting, because that's when we're trying to time the toilet sitting when a wee is actually due. Because you probably know, the bladder is like a balloon, it's very stretchy. And within the bladder walls are what's called stretch receptors. And as the bladder fills with wee, the more stretchy it gets, as the fuller it gets, it starts to send signals to the brain to say, bladder's getting full, you need to do a wee. And as adults, we can suss out bladder signals from about when our bladder's about half full. And these signals are very subtle. But actually, as adults, we tend to go for a wee opportunistically, out on a girls' night out. Going to we'll come with you. Yeah. Interestingly, if somebody says, right, I'm going to go for a number 2, anybody? No, that's fine. You can go by yourself.
Yes, not quite so socially acceptable.
Toddler, and we've all heard about the toddler dance, haven't we? When you see the toddler and do you need to do a wee? No. Do you need to do a wee? No. Do you need to do Yeah. And off they run, because the fuller the bladder, the stronger the signals. So what we want to do is try and time the potty sitting when their bladder's nearly full, when they're going to get some relatively stronger signals to the brain, so they can associate those signals. I mean, at the moment, they could be Chinese. It has no understanding for the child. It's just something that's buzzing in their head. But then they'll learn to recognise, when I get this feeling, that's when I sit on the potty. And so that, again, that's laying the foundation for self-initiation learning. Yeah. So just going back about when we talked about the cloth nappies. With cloth nappies, you would know exactly how often your child wees, because they would be wet.
Visually see.
Yes. And also you'd know, it seems about 2 hours or an hour since I last changed him. He seems to be saying drier for longer. And that may then trigger you to think, it's nice sun in the garden. Next time I change nappy, I might leave it off and see how. But with disposable nappies, and I say to parents, well, how often does he do a wee? Not sure really. No. I change him 3 times a day. Yeah. Does that? Well, no, not really, because we don't know. You probably know when he's first done a wee. Right. But even if you check the nappy, you wouldn't know if he's done another big wee later on, or lots of little wees. And that's so we can work out roughly how often they do a wee, how long they can stay dry for. We talk about using kitchen roll, and the reason why we say kitchen roll, because it normally doesn't disintegrate when it's wet. And so they get a sheet of kitchen roll, fold it in a little pad and put it in the nappy after the first nappy change of the day. Then every hour or so, just undo a corner of the nappy and just check. And make a note if it's wet or dry. Obviously, if it's wet, then take it out and put a dry piece in. And then you just change the nappy as you would normally do. And we ask them to do it for about 3 days, or basically as long as they can bear to do it, really.
Maximum 3 days, really.
I mean, obviously, if they could do it for longer, that gives us a better idea. And also to make a note of drinks as well. Because some children will regularly do a wee after a big drink. And so that's handy to know in terms of the potty sitting. So we would then have a look at what they recorded, and there's charts, as we've said, on the Down Syndrome UK website, but a piece of paper, anything, it doesn't really matter. Just so we have and then we have a look and see how long they can stay dry for, and what's the longest time they could stay dry for. Because what we don't want to do is put them on the potty too frequently. We need to give the bladder time to fill, because the bladder has got to learn to hold on to wee, and if it's emptied too often, it never learns.
I think that's a really big learning point for our parents, because we see so many parents going, putting them on the potty every half an hour, and I'm still not catching any. It's because the child, as you say, they're not experiencing
also,
that.
What happens as well is they put them on every half an hour, and the child does a little wee, and they think brilliantly. They're not enabling the bladder to mature, and because the child's being prompted so frequently, their bladder's never filling, and they're never going to suss out what these weird bladder signals are if they are actually left for longer.
Right.
So that's why we try and time the toileting to when a wee is expected, and that, as I say, enables the bladder to mature, the child to learn to develop some understanding and awareness of the bladder signals, but also more likely to do a big wee, more likely then to that be positively reinforced. Oh, look at that, you've done a big wee, well done.
Yeah.
And in some cases, rewards, we all like a reward. You know, if I have a big thing of, I think, I'm going to make myself a nice cup of tea when I finish this. So, you know, even as adults, we like to be rewarded, don't we? And I think the key for rewards for children doing a wee or a poo in the potty or the toilet, it's important the rewards are different to what they would, or because parents say, oh yes, he gets a sticker or he gets a clap. Well, he probably gets claps for other good work. It's important that he recognises this is important because...
So they're only getting that reward when it's toilet related.
Yes. And obviously chocolate buttons come into the fore often. And if they have a chocolate button, the key then is no chocolate at any other time. Otherwise it becomes meaningless. Because I remember talking to a mum and she said, well, his grandma always gives him chocolate. Well, from now on, grandma doesn't give him chocolate. He needs to understand weeing and pooing on the toilet is important. And it's so important I get chocolate when I've done it. And that reinforces the child. Because, to be honest, kids, and even typically developing kids, couldn't care less if they wet their pants or... you know, socially, they're not going to be motivated. So we have to motivate them in other ways.
With a reward.
With a reward. And over time, they'll realise, actually, this is a good thing, and this is what everybody does, and this is what I need to do. But at the beginning, when they're only little, they have no concept of... you know,
why they should wee on a potty. And I think also, you know, obviously that reward will diminish, so you don't have to think they're going to be taking chocolate buttons.
It's gradually faded away
as it becomes as they become better at it, as with so many other things.
The reward is meaningful for that child. Some, like my little grandson, doesn't like chocolate. So we'd have to use something different for him. And some children are not allowed chocolate.
That's it.
You know, so you have to think of something that is meaningful for them, is easy to give. And it's not to be, because one mum said, oh, I'll use the iPad. We don't like really using the iPad as a reward because the iPad is useful for other things, maybe learning or what have you.
It perhaps at nursery.
So it needs to be something that's important, but if they can't have it, then it's not going to be a disaster. And then obviously as you're working through step 3, again, it's important nursery are fully on board, that you continue with the communication, encouraging the child to copy with lots of praise and that sort of thing. And so the time toileting carries on until you're starting to see, hopefully, some really good success. And I think we know from experience that the sooner you get the child out of disposable nappies, because it's really only when they're in ordinary pants that awareness really ramps up. It's a different sensation weeing in pants than it is weeing in a nappy. Weeing in a nappy, as they start to, the wee is instantly locked away, so they're not getting any sensory feedback. Whereas weeing in pants or wetting their pants or what have you, they're getting that sensory feedback, so that makes a difference. So as soon as they're having some reasonable good success with weeing and pooing on the potty or the toilet, and at this stage, at time toileting, even if they're just sitting on the potty, we would encourage sitting on the toilet as well. Makes and anybody's toilet as much as possible. Visiting friends, could we just sit? The child has to understand that there are different toilets out there, shapes, sizes, colours, but they're all toilets where you do a wee.
Because we do see some children who become they'll only wee on the Peppa Pig potty if it's in the downstairs loo or whatever. And so that's a really important thing for our children to experience different potties, different loos.
And once they go to school, they're going to have to use the toilet. I mean, I had a mum who carried a pink toilet seat round with her everywhere she went. A full-size toilet seat, because that was the only one her child would sit on. So I think you have to, at the beginning, mix it up. And you can get portable potties and and you can get adaptable toilet seats that fold and portable and what have you. So there's lots of things that are easy portable that you can use. And so we're coming towards the end of step 3 when
Can I just, recapping, so we've done the baseline assessment, which is generally 3 days. We've established through that, we've mapped out sort of when a child typically, well, we know roughly when they're eating and drinking because we pretty much control that. But then sort of how long after that the child's weeing. And then from that, we've then been putting them on the potty based on those timings. And we'd be expecting to see some success then.
Hopefully, yes.
So prior to this, our expectations have been quite low, haven't they?
Yes, it's just basically getting the child used to it. It's just like when you give, 1-year-old, like my youngest granddaughter is 18 months and she'll stick the toothbrush in her mouth and have a little go, but she's just getting, and she knows the routine because she's waiting for it. The toothbrush, the toothpaste, and then she does it because her siblings do. So it's just, this is what we do. We all sit on the potty of the toilets. The step 1 and 2, as we've said, about getting the child used to sitting, raising awareness. Step 3, we're formalising it a bit more. And we're still in nappies at this stage.
But this is a relatively short phase.
Well, it depends where the child's at and what's going on.
I was going to say family situations as well.
Yes, and sometimes there's hiccups as if they're moving house or the child's not well. And that's fine. We just pick up again. We find with some older children, as we're moving towards step 4 and we're in step 3, we're starting to suss out that the child has sussed out that actually I quite like the nappy. And the frustration of the mum is he used to be really good weeing and now he doesn't do anything, and then I put a nappy on and I know he's done the wee. So for those children, even though we've not quite moved into step 4, we would suggest the use of washable trainer pants, which are like a bit of a halfway between a no nappy and pants for children who we suspect are starting, because these kids are, because parents, there's often from healthcare professionals, unfortunately, lots of negativity for children who are pre-verbal, saying, well, he doesn't indicate and he doesn't say and what have you. These kids understand lots and lots, and cute enough to know actually I've done away with my nappy but nobody's known, and I can still play out in the sandpit and I'm not going to get called in and what have you. And so we have to, before that behaviour becomes entrenched, when it's really quite difficult to move them forward, is moving them onto and big boy pants. Look at it, and also again make the child think it's their decisions in terms of
have the child involved.
And do you want to put the blue pants on today or the green pants? And so and don't forget you must keep your pants dry, and you can start to introduce like the games in terms of the matching games, the bingo games. And we can have a tea party when all the dolls and the teddies, everybody has to take a turn sitting on the potty and keeping their pants dry.
And I think it's important to learn the concept of dry and wet, we kind of have to teach our kids, don't we? And that's, through playing games.
You can have a pair of wet pants, a pair of dry pants. Which pants are wet, which dry? Oh, good boy.
And making it part of everyday language a little bit, not just always, to introduce, that as we wash our face, the flannel's wet and now we're going to dry our body and so on. So using that vocabulary is important, isn't it?
Yes.
And also clean and dirty, sorry, I've just thought. For others. Having, because we want to praise the clean, and we'll come on to how we respond when we have accidents in pants.
That's
yes,
step 4.
but in terms of language, again, it's important to teach those skills.
We're coming towards the end of step 3, and so we need then to get prepared for when the nappy comes off. So you don't suddenly, Monday morning, bounce into nursery. Oh, by the way, he's got no nappy on. He's in pants from today. What you need to do is obviously nursery and preschool and childminder and everybody else who's been involved with the care of the child has been on board all the way along, and together you make the decision, right, we're going to in next week or whatever, and it's important you make a collective decision. So nursery are involved, because they might say, actually, we've got such and such thing going on next week and the week after. I think it would be better if we aim for such and such a time. And that's great, because they think they're involved as much as which is important. Yes. And so we usually suggest comes home on the Friday, and that's when the nappy comes off, so you've got the weekend to sort of have a little. We're saying this because we've had situations in step 3 when we've had a child virtually dry in nappies, weeing every hour and a half, 2 hours some cases, and mum thinks, I've cracked this. This is brilliant.
Little does she know.
Oh, absolutely. This is, this is going to be a doddle. She buys half a dozen pair of pants, and this is it. Nappy comes off, and I get the desperate, oh my God, what's happened? He's done 4 wees in an hour. What's happened here? And again, it's actually, and we always say, and what's happened in the past, again, with some healthcare professionals, they've said to their nurse or their health visitor, we've tried taking the nappy off, but he just wet all the time. Oh, he obviously wasn't ready. Not ready. Oh, put him back in nappies, and that's often what happens when we get these 7, 8, 9-year-olds in boot camp saying, we've tried it before, but he wasn't ready. And so what they put the nappy back on and waited a bit and tried again, and each failure takes them further and further backwards. So these little accidents are actually a crucial part of the learning and the awareness raising, because previously in a disposable nappy, the child has done a wee, the wee instantly is locked away, which is brilliant, keeps the child dry, keeps their skin intact. So they've not had that feedback. Suddenly they start to wee and they think, oh, when they're in pants, they have this different sensation and they're feeling, oh, what's happened? And they stop themselves weeing. And mum says, oh, and the mum notices a wet pants, you've wet your pants. Takes the pants off, puts the dry ones on. And what's happened is the child's maybe done a very small wee, stop themselves doing it. And of course, all the time the bladder's filling. So 15 minutes later, the bladder's full again. Another wee. And this keeps happening. And actually what is happening with the child becoming aware of the sensation and stopping themselves weeing, what they're actually doing is practicing bladder control. They're starting to control their bladder. What should happen when they do it, and we call these little start-stop wees, and they can be horrendous. I remember on one boot camp we did a few years ago, the parents all had a competition how many pairs of wet knickers they could get to try and irradiate. I think the top one in a day was 18. Because these kids just stopping. So what should happen is when they've done that little wee, oh, you've done a wee, quick, wee toilet, or quick wee potty, and take them straight to the potty. And what we suggest they do is distract them for a little bit, because what this child is doing is holding on something to relax, and then, with a book or a toy, and then hopefully they will finish off their doing a wee. Great, oh, well done. But over time, the child becomes more aware, and usually within a few days, a week, this starts to improve, and that finding that interval between weeing is getting longer and longer. And so everybody has to be prepared, nursery, childminder.
The floodgates will be open.
And so, no, you don't need 6 pairs of pants. You need at least loads of pants. Yeah. And also we suggest no fancy trousers with zips, buttons, buckles, and jogging pants. And in the house, you know,
pajama bottoms,
things that can be chucked in the wash quickly, because one of the things for some children, and it's the most frustrating thing for parents, and I can understand it, they leave the child for 5 minutes, come back in, and there they are sitting in a puddle, you know, wet pants and trousers, and mum says, oh, you've done away, and the child looks, I don't know where that came from, nothing to do with me. Yeah. And the mother says, he's not bothered at all. Well, they're not bothered. Children couldn't care less. No. They're sitting in nice warm wee. And
sometimes they quite like it, they'll play with it. Yeah, it's another distraction.
Yeah. So what happens as well, if the children wear very close fitting knickers, pants, that almost feels a bit like the nappy felt. Okay. So what we suggest for children who constantly wet their pants is not put any pants on at all. Right. But obviously in the winter, that's when the jogging bottoms because they're loose. Right. Or we say put loose boxer shorts on, or just little short, or just a skirt. Yeah. And obviously in the summer they can play outside. Yes. And that sort of thing. So. And also have the potty in the room where the child is, and that's a visual reminder that's where wees go. And some mums will say, you know, he's great if he's got no pants on, because sometimes I'll go in and I'll find there's wee in the potty, and he's obviously just walked over and done a wee in the potty.
Excellent. So, yeah.